Okay, for people who are joining this live stream, this is the what could be called the missing meeting, but that will be very confusing. It's we're going to be talking about the handling of missing data. This is all stuff for post version 12. Okay, so let's go through some of this stuff. So one of the issues, I mean, there's missing data, there's exceptions. Those are slightly different kinds of things. Okay, so we're talking about, I mean, we have things like delete missing right now. What is missing behavior? Where does that show up? Oh boy, that's part of the data set story. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm querying.
Missing data rules. Whew, that's again something very different. Missing style. Okay, so that's something that probably should be generalized to many things. Is that not correct?
What do you mean generalized in which direction?
Well, I mean, the missing style is something like, how do you display something whose value is missing? I mean, because in this case, with georegion value
visualization functions where you have an object for the thing. You just don't know what color it should be.
Right. What's another example? I mean, georegion value plot.
I mean, it should be supported within array plot, but isn't yet.
I see what you're saying. So an array plot, I mean, if I say continents here, and then I say, let's say, what would I say? I would say population. What happens if I just say, how do I make a thing suitable for what happens if I do that? Does that produce a list, or does that? Yes. Oh, then no missing. I thought Antarctica. Well, who knows? Okay.
There's 4,500 people down there.
Apparently so. That's a lot of people. Okay.
Do you want an entity association? Is that what you're looking for? Yeah.
So can you give me
association in that input?
Comma association?
I'm not entity association.
Okay.
Tony? Oh, it's spelled wrong. You're not spelling association right.
Missing an I.
Yeah, but that okay, but so that should be okay. Can you report that to user assistance for that's a bug in the in autocomplete? Well, maybe it's a bug in autocomplete. Okay, well let me really cheat here and let me just edit this. Let's make Australia be missing. Okay.
I was gonna say we don't have anybody in Australia on the phone call, do we?
Yeah, it's like 3 a.m. So I think we're okay.
Okay, so this is going to be, I don't know why this is taking so long, but so this should be coloring this according to those values. Why is it taking so long?
It's unloading the polygons of the continents, which are large.
Okay.
Right, so Australia is gray. We know that it's in the set, but we don't know what its population is.
So if I said missing style arrow white here, then Australia will be white.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the analogous cases to this are things like putting missing in an array plot. What are some other examples of that?
Well, bar chart. I mean, bar chart has a very old behavior that predates missing, which ignores non-numerical things. And
No. Bar chart is not a case for this because bar chart can't do anything with missing. I mean, bar chart does the right thing, I'm pretty sure. You know, if you do bar chart of 1, missing, 2.
Yeah, it does also the same thing for 1, x, 2. That's
Correct.
why I'm saying it predates missing.
Right. I mean, but
with these functions, there are other things than missing in the world that's not real.
Right. But in the case of bar chart, we leave a space for the bar.
Exactly.
But we don't have any height to render it at. That's what's missing.
Right.
Whereas
And
with
all the
Australia, we
data
know what
this
the polygon
function
is.
all the data viz functions that haven't written in some funky way, in other words, from the viz team, they do handle anomalous data, and it's not missing specifically. Missing is just one out of many, unevaluated, indeterminate, complex values. There are all kinds of things that are anomalous.
Okay, okay, well, let's talk about that for a second. I mean, so you say something like this, okay. So there is no missing style for that? There
Correct. Could be. I mean, it would have to render along the axis or something.
Right, because we don't have, there's no bar height to fill in.
Well, it could render a frowny face here or something. I mean, it could render graphics above the axis that are just an indicator that it is missing. It could render an arrow.
It could. I mean, as I said, at the time when all these designs were done, should it do that for indeterminates?
1 plus
a zillion other weird things that the system can produce.
Right.
And why would you then call it missing value?
Yeah, I understand. There's a good example from the live stream, which is weather data where some data points are missing.
Okay.
And in that case, with date list plot, the default behavior, but I don't think we don't have a missing value mechanism in date list plot, do we?
No, it will have a hole.
I mean, it just leaves gaps.
So that is the mechanism.
Yes.
And that took some effort, actually. So you can have that even when it's not data. So our functions sometimes don't produce real values, believe it or not. They produce complex values. They produce indeterminates. They produce infinities. They produce all kinds of funky things.
Mm-hmm.
And we did some. In that case, we know the data up to that point. So they needed to do special things to home in and refine around that. So if you plot the square root of, 1 minus x squared plus y squared, plot 3D of that, and you can see how it refines around that. But,
1 minus what?
Square root of that. So it's just something bad, square root. And 1 minus x squared plus minus y squared. And then just plot that from -1 to 1 for both of them. That would look very ugly before we added several layers that does that kind of refinement.
I see. That's refinement on the edge to make it a proper...
right. And that's
beautiful. Yeah.
Non-trivial.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but in that case, again, you've got missing stuff around.
Right. But generally what we do is to, for all these viz functions, we show nothing because there is nothing. It's missing.
Right, but the Australia case...
missing.
Yeah, but the problem is Australia isn't missing in this case.
Right, which is why it has a missing style.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The value of Australia is missing, but we still have a representation of, right, we have a special representation of the label that we don't necessarily have, right, in other...
Right. So another case of this is presumably array plot, where...
right, there's some generic...
It's
any
color.
Brick red.
Yeah, it's that color, which is not terrible. But I mean, that presumably should have a missing style.
Correct.
It doesn't. Yeah, right. But that's another case where, like Australia, it's got space allocated for it.
Right. And if we were to leave it blank, it would look white and you would interpret it differently.
Right, because white actually has meaning in array plot.
In that grayscale color function.
Yeah.
As an aside, if we ever do musical notation things, there is a style that's used when the pitch is not precise, which is an X instead of a circle.
An X where in the stave or whatever?
Like where the circular part of the note would normally be, you have an X.
Yeah, but okay. So, for example, for drums, you can have different heights of X because it's just unprecise pitch. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have pitch. So it's around a C, but it's X.
All right. That's interesting. Okay, let's go to other types of missing issues. So, I mean, one is in graphics. Another is in, for example, if I say, and then I say mean of that list, it will just do the wrong thing, right?
Well, it depends on your definition of wrong.
I don't know. I mean, let's say we have a team. Let's call them VA instead of WA. And let's say that they throw in a new symbol. They call it, I don't know, imaginary or something. And none of the system knows
about it. Look.
Okay.
It's clearly useful to be able to deal with this in some reasonable way.
Right, which is mean of delete missing of your list, right?
Assuming that that's the correct way of handling missing.
Right.
Another alternative is to say, oh no, there's a data point missing. That means we just don't know what the mean is. And so I really don't have a problem with the symbolic results, because after all, this is a symbolic language. I think it's highly misleading if we were to automatically delete missing.
Well, okay, let me retract then. I kind of side with Stephen. I think we should actually I think what we need to do when we introduce objects is to think a little bit ahead instead of throwing them in and then hope for the best.
Roger, if we could see ahead, if at all moments we could see infinitely ahead, we would be in much better shape, but we would probably also do nothing.
Well, there is that.
It's really hard to foresee everything, so let's not beat ourselves up about that. What's the point here? I mean, I do take your point that, different behaviors for missing, which include, one is, just to drop that point. And two is, if there's something missing, we don't know the answer.
There's probably something in between. Say what we do in food data. If you have 12,000 cookies and you want the mean and 12 are missing, who cares? But if it's opposite, it matters.
There's other kinds of missing, which is called censored data, which is a type of missing data, a more specific form.
Yeah.
And when we introduced that, we did think about sort of the processing pipeline for it. So there's a whole, it's called survival analysis. There's a whole set of things that deal with that.
Yeah.
And I think that the most problematic thing about that anti-value example is that the ratio between the adiabatic index and the atomic radius is 1. Because I think that it's very weird that missing simplify.
Sorry, what are you saying?
If you take the adiabatic index and the atomic radius, they're both missing. No, they're not both. I mean, let's take a case where they are the same type of missing. They will cancel out in an anti-function.
That's totally weird. I agree. That would be totally weird. I mean, if we do this for, let's say,
right, or if you divide by the adiabatics index by the atomic radius. Not sure why you'd want to do that, but if you did, you'd end up with 1. Is that what you're saying, Carlo?
Yeah, that's a horrifying and scary.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the question of adding more information to missing. So the more information it has, the more useful.
Right, and making and essentially UUIDing missings.
Not necessarily. I mean, to me, the most important thing is to know where it came from. So the information of which function generated it.
No, but
it is important to UUID them, because otherwise you end up with missing divided by missing is 1.
Right.
Well,
but they don't have to be UUID. Like if I retrieve the value and you retrieve it, it's still the same value, but they would have different UUIDs.
Yeah, but missing is not. I mean, the problem is that missing should never be equal to itself. So,
well, look, this is really what this would be. Okay, so one version of this would be, but it's then a bit circular and complicated. I mean, okay, so this would be one version, hold of Einsteinium
inactivated, I would say.
Okay.
So while you're typing that in, so Carlo, so you're saying that if I did Einsteinium of density equals Einsteinium of density, I should get false?
Well, it depends on the missing. My point is that, so when we're talking about SQL, there are effectively two types of missing. One is the missing that says, I don't know what this column is. And another is, in this particular data point, I have no data. The second type, which is the null in SQL, is a lot like not a number in IEE, whatever number that is.
IEEE.
Yeah, IEEE 17, whatever. So
you're saying that the types of missing, so we can characterize types of missing, right? This particular value is missing, but the structure is okay.
Yeah, that was what we called the data missing. And the other one was a schema missing. So that's very SQL-y.
Right. Okay. There's structurally nothing there.
Right. So is that roughly missing of not available versus missing of not applicable?
Roughly.
Or is this yet another
no, I think
distinction?
it's not available, not applicable.
Could be a piece of the real world. I mean, not applicable would be something like the melting point of helium, for example.
Does anybody use those reasons for missing? I've never seen any code that uses them for anything.
We put a lot of effort in alpha to return the right missing.
But why? I mean,
so that we can give a
like if you'd ask for the death state of somebody who's still alive, it's very important that we tell you the reason it's missing is not because we didn't find it, but because he's still alive.
But does anybody use that?
Well, we certainly use it for visual display.
We use it for alpha all the time.
Well, we certainly use it, right? The user uses it when they look at it, right? They may not use it computationally.
But Michael is saying that alpha uses it computationally as well.
For what we put in a pot. Like, we don't say we don't know when the person died. We say he's still alive.
Right. Right.
But I still think that not applicable, not available are both data missing. And so they should not be equal to themselves.
I mean, okay.
No, I disagree. Like, applicable means that in principle we should have had a different entity type so that entity type is fully characterized by their viable properties. If it's not applicable, then it's a different thing.
Yeah, I agree. But what I'm saying is that missing not applicable, just like missing not available, works like not a number. You should not be comparing it to anything.
There's another side too. There's sort of scalar missings. But if you have big data and you have a lot of missings, they're very big. They're very the sort of representation issues. Same thing that happened with quantities. If you have 10,000 quantities, it was so big you couldn't.
Fine, you're just objecting to details of the implementation, Roger. I mean, we're trying to understand. Look, we're trying to understand what design we want to get here. Then we will loop back to try to understand how we implement it. I mean,
but I think that Roger has a very important point here. It's that we should work on supporting missing on numeric array for communication with other languages, for example.
Well, we can talk about supporting not a number. I certainly disagree that we should support missing in there.
Right. On the live
and not a number is on the to-do list. I can't promise it on any particular day.
Yeah, but then what is it in our language? If you import something that's not a number, I see. So this imports as indeterminate, which is its own poisoned version of missing. Right?
It poisons arithmetic, but not other operations. So, right, you can say 1 plus indeterminate equals 2, and that will give you indeterminate equals 2.
Right. I mean, if I say indeterminate divided by indeterminate, I will get indeterminate.
Right. But if you do indeterminate equals something, it'll just stay unevaluated.
Okay.
Right, which is different from undefined, for example, which is, which is completely undefined and will therefore also poison logical expressions.
What is undefined? When does that show up?
So, for example,
that's for functions that have undefined values. So, for instance, a conditional expression will have to return that.
I had forgotten we ever have this. So if I say undefined...
So this is also known as bot in computer science, right? The bottom element. In the semantics of programming languages, this is equivalent to bot, undefined.
I didn't remember we had that. Yeah.
The fact that indeterminate equals 3 does not evaluate means that we are not compliant with IE.
Well, we're not committing to the fact that indeterminate is exactly the same as the random thing in this stupid standard, which I don't agree.
Yeah,
it's a horrifying standard anyway, but that's a different issue.
Yes. I'm not sure how many people here can quote it and argue intelligently about it. So
okay. In any case, let's continue scoping out what we're talking about here. Okay. So let's just look at this. Let's just go through this agenda, and then I want to come back and talk about the different implications of this. Okay. I don't understand what this is. They use the second argument of missing.
So this is talking about the fact that missing is also used to report invalid names, which is a bit of a stronger error.
Well, that's almost like your schema error here. Right? I mean, so this one here is there's structurally nothing there. That's that case. As opposed to there is, as opposed to this case where that is, there's nothing wrong with the structure. The structure is okay. You can meaningfully, in principle, define an adiabatic index for uranium. I'm actually surprised that that's not known because, well, it depends on whether it's a monatomic gas or not.
So those 3 were examples of 3 things that syntactically are correct, but they returned 3 different reasons. So one is...
Right, you'd also get something like, right, if you did association, A goes to B of C, right?
Okay, so let's look at that. So if we say AROB, okay, so which one is that? That is more the structural one, correct? That's more this one, isn't it?
That would be my instinct, but I guess Carlos the SQL expert.
I don't see any relation. I think it's just an independent use of missing.
Well, but this is data dependent and this is structure. Carlo, can you speak to that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
No.
The association behavior, A goes to B of C gives missing of key absent.
That's a schema missing.
Okay. So the next, I don't know what this comparison null values, okay, fine. Aggregation values have an implicit delete missings. Okay. Okay. Well, that's a question of arithmetic / statistics / machine learning with missings, right? So in the case of arithmetic, that's the case of mean. And as Michael points out, what this does can somewhat depend on how many missings there are. Because, I mean, for example, if I say mean of missing, it's kind of horrifyingly just give me a single missing, isn't it? Right? But it might be, so what should this do? If you've got 300 values and 1 missing, poisoning the whole thing is probably not what you want. Well, I don't know. I mean, on the other hand, if we said max of 2, 3 missing, who knows what that should be? See what I'm saying? And actually, that behavior right now is pretty good for max.
Right. I mean, I think on a certain level, right, I think you have a better argument with, median. I mean, I think it's problematic to just automatically throw away missings, but you have a better argument with median, right? Because if you have 301 median, you're at most off by 1, right? If you don't know.
Yeah, but if it's 300 missings and 1 value, you don't want.
What the heck is that?
1 value.
I see what you're saying. The main point you're making is that's sort of what it means to be robust statistics. Do we have somebody from the statistics team?
That's a perfectly reasonable error message, right? It's telling you that missing is not a number, so it can't compute the median.
But wait a minute. Am I being confused, or is it the case that if I have enough numbers here, the fact that there's 1 missing one doesn't matter?
Of course, it matters.
Should give it a round.
Yeah, you don't know where to sort in the missing.
I see.
Right. I mean, you can give if you have 300, you can probably give a pretty good approximation, right? I mean,
around with the element.
I know. If we had a median around, so for example, if we have, in this case, right? This case, I bet we're not going to do it, but we could do if we did a mean around here. That could give a meaningful value. Is that true?
No.
No, because you have no idea without knowing.
No idea what that number could be. 10 gazillion.
Yes,
exactly.
Right. But median around could give a reasonable result.
Right.
Okay. Ethan on our live stream is expressing the desire for good ways of interoperating with Python and NumPy, and commenting that missings will interfere with generating JSON and numeric arrays. Well, that's another interesting question: is import and export of missings? What should we do when we export?
I'm sorry. That it interferes with what?
Generating JSON.
Generating JSON. Okay.
What does JSON do? What would be a reasonable thing to convert the missing to for JSON? Anybody have an idea there? I mean, what would be an appropriate thing to do? I don't know. I don't know what it does.
Presumably, it gives some sort of expert-like thing, or Is that because it's sort of defaulting to raw JSON, and you need to say like expression JSON?
No, maybe, but do we actually have? I mean that the real issue, right, is there is no good JSON for an arbitrary expression.
Well, I know that, but there may be some special representation for missing.
Yeah, there is null. They have null in JSON. And in JavaScript, they also have undefined. But I think that in JSON you can see.
So one thing that comes out of this is we might want an option for JSON export that says what to do with missings.
And that might not want to be restricted to, assuming that JSON doesn't have nan, or maybe it does. I'm not an expert in JSON, but maybe we need a general not, and general other function, not just missing.
Possibly. Right.
I was going to say, even if JSON does have nan, which I don't think it does, there's no guarantee that your missing is a numeric thing.
Well, no, but I meant but what if you have indeterminates in there? Those are definitely nans.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I was about to ask what happens if you try to export an indeterminate to JSON.
Anyway, then Python has none, which is not like our none. It's like the null in JavaScript.
Okay. All right. So look, that's an issue, what to do with these. But this is probably not we've got, we've had, we had a missing style, but this is, as you say, not missing. This is I don't know what this should be called. And we've had this in some other export formats where we have to give some default behavior. Okay, let's take a look here.
That's often what happens on import. Okay, so let's say Excel doesn't have a particular way of handling missing, which it doesn't. And so what people do is that they encode some special value to be the missing, and that's usually, in the notes in and around the data set.
Yeah, I understand.
And that kind of convention is used for an awful lot of data formats, actually.
Yeah, but so what are you suggesting?
But one difference though is that you can put anything into an Excel cell, and so our default for exporting an arbitrary Wolfram language expression to Excel is to just stringify it.
Yes.
And then you just see the full form or whatever it is inside the Excel cell. But we can't really do that with JSON.
Okay. But you probably want to convert it to something, on either direction, on import or export. And the question is, should we make it service functions? Should there be options that make that makes it
yes.
right there?
Right. Okay, so let's take a look at a few of the other issues that are highlighted here, and then I want to come back. Propagation of missing. Yeah, I mean, this is a horrible mess, what to do with all of this. Horrible mess. I mean, as you say, we've got indeterminate, undefined, which I had forgotten, and we've got missing, and yeah. I mean, both indeterminate and undefined don't need to have parameterization because they're simply poisonous. And they don't, this UUI doing business is irrelevant to them. Okay, listability and missing. What's this about?
This is the idea that it's not good to return a single missing when you want to mean a list of mostly missing.
Well, and is there a case where we do that?
Well, it has been suggested sometimes, for example, that if it is a full list of missings, we could return a single missing. And I think that's an error because most functions will be prepared to get a list.
Yeah, I don't think it's the right thing. I don't think we should modify the structure unless we absolutely have to.
Correct. I agree.
Yep. Okay.
So those are just details from Tony.
Okay, so what's this?
So, yeah, so I wrote that. So the idea, or my main suggestion would be to add as much information as we can in the missing objects.
Okay, if we do that, we have to make missing a blob, not because we don't want to display, which I think wouldn't be a bad thing anyway.
Because if we then have a more powerful delete missing, for example, able to look at patterns and things like that, we would have very powerful tools to decide a posteriori what we want to do.
Fine. I think that's good. And I think just having it format as a blob so we don't have all of the random details hanging out here would be a good thing. Anybody object to that? No? Okay. So I think we should do that.
I mean, by blob, do you mean a summary box or do you mean some new type of formatting, right? Because
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we would need. I think it shouldn't be too heavy. I don't think it should be a full summary box.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it would be nice to just have a thing that says, I don't know what the right format is, but I wouldn't give all the details in here. You just don't care about those.
Yeah. Did you know what the traditional form of missing is?
No, I don't. What is it?
It's be prepared.
Very minimal.
It's a dash. It's a dash.
Yes.
Does it have a mouse?
Head tooltip.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not crazy. But
no, it's not crazy, but I don't think we want that in standard form. But I think we want to display it explicitly, but we wouldn't want its tentacles coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a gray rounded rect around a nicely
Something
not
like
available.
that. Yeah, something like that. Yes, I think that's right. I mean, particularly if the reasons are, key absent, not available, and so on, it's clear that those are things that aren't there in some way. Okay.
So a question for the Wolfram Alpha developers. Is there any reason why currently missing doesn't add more information? Why in many cases it's just an empty or just a single string?
It's probably mostly for Jeremy, because kind of filling the various things in is a little bit of a pain in the databases, according to Jeff.
Could it also be general data not combining things? So if you have more than one, you don't.
Well, I think there's a bunch of things. So,
Okay.
for example, a Packlet developer gets to specify, should the default missing be not available or not applicable or something else. But that, already precludes the second argument, right? Because what you're really doing is you're saying, hey, it's not there in the database, and then it gets filled in. Beyond that, you might be asking, why don't we have this second argument that was the original expression in there? I assume that was the question.
Yes,
and I could believe that that's just historical. Certainly the design of how Packlets return missing well predates me.
Okay, so that should be investigated. Okay, here's a question about visualization of missing. Do we want to give messages? When do we want to give messages? I think we do want some kind of messaging, right? Because otherwise you're like, oh my gosh, there were no battles in the South Pacific or something. But oh well, actually, that's just because the data was wrong. Am I making sense?
Yes, that's the reason why geographics, before eliminating, because otherwise the map would ping, it reports the missing data.
Well, why would it be? Okay, but pinking is just wrong. I mean, this,
Yeah, so it's following the same idea of list plot, which is eliminating the object, but it's reporting the fact that it's being eliminated.
Yeah, but notice that list plot does not report the elimination.
But you see the fact that the sixth value is missing.
Well,
that can be a very subtle thing.
But yeah, right. I mean, because this could easily be, if I just say 1 3 1 3. Well, let's see what happens. 1 3 2 4 missing 5. Yeah, I wouldn't know that from anything. I couldn't tell.
Generally, I think we should design message groups that you can turn on and off. And the question is what the default behavior then is. But instead of individual messages, we should have message groups that
well, I agree. And that relates to my exceptions mechanism, which we need to get back to, where there's a lot of things which are messages off by default.
Yeah.
Right?
But the thing is, you don't really want to manage all of those messages.
No, I'm well aware. Right. I mean, I think that's it. But an alternative way to do it would be to have an option inside list plot that determines the behavior. We have this, I believe we have a missing behavior. What is it called? Do we have yes, we have missing behavior, which is now a very random thing, right?
I was trying to say earlier, but was muted, that, right, we do have the concept of message groups. We just haven't maintained it. So
I know we do. But what I was thinking is that, and this applies to other things too, because messages are sort of kind of like a debug trace like thing. And you typically don't want to run with it on because everything becomes so noisy. But sometimes you really do. But then we got to make it easy. So you kind of have something along the lines of themes, that there's reasonably sized chunks that you turn on and off.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, okay, okay. So we've got another issue, which is, in graphics, fundamentally, we've got cases where, okay, there are two fundamental cases. You know, I mean, you know, this is types of missing in visualization.
But it's, as I said, also for visualization, missing is just one of the non-anomalous values.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. So, no, you mean anomalous value.
Too many negations in there.
Yeah. Okay, so look, there are types of missing. One, there's a place. There's a space where you need to put something. Right? So that's georegent
value plots, array plots.
Anything else? Are there some
contour
probably. One? Okay. Okay. The case 2 is you can just leave it out and nobody would know. Right? That's list plot and all the others. I guess there's another case where you can leave it out, but it breaks a line or line surface, etc. And so, right, so that's a case like where
take list plot or list line plot or
list plot 3D.
That, yeah, list plot 3D. Or the thing what Roger was showing before with that contour thing where it had a region where the thing was complex.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But in that case, so wait a minute. So what are the cases? So this is the worst case in terms of messaging, right? That case, you really messages are the most relevant here because you can't tell by looking at the picture that there's anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this case, you can plainly see the line was broken or whatever else. Right?
I would suggest a distinction here. If you have a list of entities, for example, and one of them happens to be a missing, you could see it in advance. But if you have an entity class and you try to plot directly the class and then one happens to be a missing, I think that's the important case. Because if you don't report it, you never had the opportunity of seeing it.
Yeah, I understand. Well, so that's in the you leave it out. Okay, so I mean so I think what we're concluding here is that arguably this should generate at least one message. I don't think that will be bad for that to generate one message. I
think we have to have the option of turning it off.
Of course we do. Yeah, of course we have.
You know, whenever we have this discussion, people get all excited about having messages, but then they get really annoyed by the messages. So, No,
I'm aware, but I think one message is not. Look, a message spew like this is undesirable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, what would be better would be unable to obtain location information for 7 values. That would be much more useful. Even more useful would be unable to locate location information for 7 out of 150 values. See what I'm saying? I think that would be my favorite kind of message there.
Without reporting which ones?
That's correct. If there's only one, you can report it. But if there isn't, unable to obtain location information for 7 out of 150 values. I mean, that's to me what would be useful because then I can go find out. Then I can go dig in and say, well, what were the locations? And then I can see which ones it couldn't get.
I mean, there's also another point. What I was saying is that to me, the fact that there's a message spew here would make me want to go back to the code and see whether I'm not properly listing things and why is this being done sequentially. To me, like multiple messages from one thing that is data heavy.
That's a detail. That's a detail. I mean, are we really serious about that? It seems like a detail to me.
Well, actually, this is not being done sequentially. It's just that I'm reporting the errors after.
Yeah, okay, so it's irrelevant to that. Okay.
No, I don't think it's irrelevant. Like, assume there are hundreds missing and 1,000 plotted. With the suppression of the message, you get no idea about the relative ratio. So if it would give one message saying that 412 are missing, you would have much more information.
I know. That's what I'm suggesting.
But
you just said it's
No. What I'm saying is Carlo is pushing for a spew of messages. I think that's...
No, I'm not. No. I'm not pushing for a spew of messages. It's only that when I see a function like geographics return multiple messages, I always assume that I've done something wrong, and that I'm not performing one single call to the API.
Okay, that's a detailed thing, which turns out not to be even the case here. But this seems to me will be a useful single message for this case and for list plot. No coordinates determined for 1 out of 4 points. That seems very useful to me.
Except I'm confused because I assume that geographics is not hold all or hold first or anything like that, right? And so the problem is not the problem is not that geographics wasn't able to do something. The problem is that list of points that was passed in.
No, that's a different thing. That's a different thing because what happened here is geographics is dealing with entities. Okay, so a better message, a message if the entities have already been resolved. This was just given pure entities. It wasn't given geopositions.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, yep. It would be 7 out of 150 values do not correspond to definite locations or something. I don't know what the right term is. That's not quite right. But you get what I'm saying. That's the thing that seems to me really useful.
But I'm not sure yet. This goes back to Roger's question. What happens if instead of missing we have none or undefined or things like that?
Doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It's just you're just knowing this number of points don't have.
What we ended up doing, and which I think it's good to not home in on missing particular, because we'll invent something new in a little while. I don't know, not comfortable or whatever, missing, And so what we did for this was that we had to do if it's of this type, it's okay. If it's not, it's not. So it's a negative definition. Everything that's not real is basically bad.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that means that if we focus everything in on missing, and
I'm not talking about missing. I'm talking about that. Look,
no.
What we're saying, okay? I'm not saying anything about missing, right?
You're not. You formulated it perfectly well. I think that's perfect.
Fine.
That's what we need to stick with.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Is it the same message for 150 out of 150?
No, it probably isn't. We probably need to now. Okay, so there are 2 points I want to make about this. Given that we actually have elaborate visualization functions, we could imagine having a little footnote here, 75 missing values. Why not? Did you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like we do in Wolfram Alpha, paren 75 missing values. I mean, sort of like a legend. I don't know if that's a good idea.
I think it's a bad idea.
Okay. Explain.
If the plot is not the end of the story, it changes the shape of the result. It doesn't have the right head anymore. I'm not a big fan of this.
Okay. All right. Okay. So then I think the conclusion is that a type 2 missing, and I say missing in quotes, okay, for Roger's benefit. Oh my God, our smart quotes are not so smart if you put multiple of them together. Okay, then there are 3 cases, and let's agree what we're doing with these. I think this is, again, quite straightforward compared to some of the other stuff we have to address. You can just leave it out, then we generate a message by default. But any of these cases where it's an indicator, where there's an indicator of something being left out, you do not generate a message by default, although you could switch it on. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Not sure.
In this case, we actually have a missing style. That's a case where we have to give a missing style. This case could also give a missing style. Because
that one needs a missing style, but maybe missing style, but it also needs whatever the option is to say how to fill in the
No. That's what missing style is. I mean, so in other words,
No.
No.
Go ahead, Brett.
I mean, so there's the option of what style it is, but so imagine your list line plot.
Yep.
Right. So you have a gap, and we're going to bridge the gap. The question is how you bridge the gap.
Right. Or perhaps a better example, if you plot x to the minus 1/3 from -1 to 1.
Right. Is that just a straight line between the points, or is there something else that, because there's different strategies for that.
It is quite bizarre, by the way, that list plot is a type 2 and list line plot is a type 3.
List plot being type 2 depends on the data.
Why?
Because it depends on whether you're giving it XY pairs or just a list of Ys.
I see. List plot of XY, but not list plot of Y1, Y2,
And in alpha for the weather plots, we deliberately make use of the fact that the missing leads to exclusions in order to get the excluded line segments to be excluded. So we wouldn't want messages there. We're deliberately making use of this pre-existing behavior.
Sorry, I don't understand. You're saying in this case, there's no reason to give a message by default because you can plainly see that there's something missing.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yep.
Right. That's a type 3. Right. So in type 3, we could have a dotted line joining these. And in fact, I think we do in alpha.
Yep.
And that's what I'm saying. E.g., could style to join with a dotted line. And I think that will be a missing style, wouldn't it? Or am I confused?
Well, I mean, the dottedness would be missing style.
Okay.
The shape. I mean, in some cases, this is very hard for surfaces. This is actually hard.
Because you might have things on the boundary that are some kind of twisted polygon or something.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I don't see that happening very quickly for surfaces.
Fair enough. I mean, surfaces were mostly just leaving a gap.
Yeah, it was very hard to make the gaps.
And you're filling in. Okay, so what is your point, Itai, about this?
Right. So how would the misses? So I have one point.
Yeah.
Which is what is drawn here in the right half. If we set a non-default missing style.
What are you talking about? This is in the left half, you mean?
In the left half.
Itai's screen is flipped left to right.
Well, that is true.
Okay. That's, by the way, there is no place in the world that has their axes by default labeled right to left, is there?
No, there isn't. That was just a joke.
Okay.
Since my menu bar is reversed relative to yours.
Right.
Reversed scaling functions is pretty common, though.
Yeah. Right. And so I put in a second one where...
Okay. Look, Itai, this is exactly an example of a type 3 where you can plainly see that there's nothing there. Right? And that's fine. But what's your point? I mean, there's nothing to show into... Oh, I see. You're saying in a type 3 like this...
Right. What would the missing style do?
I don't know. I don't think it can do anything here. I don't think it can do anything. I mean, the only thing it could do... Yeah, I don't think it will do anything. I see. The question would be... No, the case that I think is more interesting is the case where...
And you easily get the data case from this by just running a table instead.
Yes, I understand. But what I'm saying is, or x less than minus 0.5. Okay. Okay, now this case is more interesting because that case, there are two ends. Like for example, even in the weather plot, okay, if that missing was at the end, what would you do? Right? In this case here, in this simulated weather plot, the missing is at the end. What do you do? It doesn't even reserve space for it, by the way, which might be a bug.
I tend to think that's a bug.
Okay. Okay, but in this case here, there's a way to join these things with dotted lines. In this case here, the only thing we might do is have it be a constant value shown with a dotted line.
Right, and that's why I'm saying that there's probably a second option there of what your imputation model is.
Yes,
right.
yes.
It doesn't bother me that it just stops there, right? That could just mean that's the last point that the weather station took, and check in again in 15 minutes, and maybe they'll have reported the latest number.
Okay, let me ask this question. What about a Geobubble chart, or a bubble chart in general, where you don't know how big the bubbles are? That's kind of a stupid point. Well, I mean, okay, so what case is that of these? This is, where the bubble is. Okay, so let's take, e.g., bubble chart, okay, where you know the position of the bubble, where you know the position, but you don't know its size. What should you do?
Add another option.
Well, you might want to put an X.
I was going to say, I mean, potentially it's like, a missing marker sort of option.
Yes, I agree. Yes, because that's a case. That's a fourth case where you know the point where something goes, but not how it should be rendered.
I think that's your Australia case, more or less.
It's not quite the Australia case, but not how it should be rendered. Because in the case, this is really, I'm going to reorder these, okay? That's really 1A, and this thing that I'm now describing is 1B, right? Where you know the point, but not how it should be rendered. You know the point, but you're actually representing the. Okay, here's another case. Well, here's a case. You know the X value, but not the Y value.
Right, so that's one of the list plot cases.
Right, but in the case of the X value, but not the Y value, it is in fact the case. But let's imagine that in this case here, where was it? In this case here, in that case, the Y value, but not the X value. In the case of, so let me give an analogy here. So if I did these, if this didn't say missing, but it said instead around 0,3, that doesn't work. Why doesn't that work? It did work. Oh, sorry, I should have said 1,3 or something. I don't know.
I mean, but it's drawn the wrong direction, which I filed the other day.
Okay, fine. But I mean, my point there is, that's really kind of, okay, so that would be a way to do, that missing could in principle be, I don't think I'm necessarily recommending this as a default.
An infinite around?
Yeah, an infinite around. A dotted line, an infinite around, something like that. I mean, this case where there's a partial coordinate. Okay, look, bottom line here is there's stuff to think about in every visualization type of what to do with missings, okay? And I think we've got several tools in our tool chest. We've got, first of all, we've got message, no message. We've got an option, no option, an option like missing style. Sometimes we're forced to have some kind of missing style with a definite value that you'll see. Sometimes the missing style by default would just be none, and the thing would just not be there.
So I'd say we can improve, but that's the place in the system where I think we've come the farthest and actually thinking about missing.
Yeah. Well, fine.
Compared to any other subsystem.
I was about to turn to talking about computations with missing. Okay. So, I mean, that's the other case. Where was it? Arithmetic, etc., 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 with missing. Okay.
So when it comes to statistics, there's sort of a model for each kind of function that one can use to, by convention and otherwise. But there are models, just as the machine learning-based imputation are model-based. But they're sort of appropriate for each area.
Well, let's enumerate some of those. So you're saying, in the case where there is data that is non-poisonous but missing, if I'm making sense.
Mm-hmm.
Give some examples of how you might deal with that. Okay.
So typical model for mean might be just the same model as machine learning uses, which is mostly normal distribution, or multinormal in their case. And that means that you would effectively replace it with the mean, of the others. But I don't have a big catalog of these. I just know that they're different in each different area.
Do we have somebody from the statistics group here?
Ghosh is here.
Yes.
Okay. Well, so let's start talking about what these. Okay, so one approach is assume the missing is actually from a distribution. Is simply not was simply not measured and follows the ambient distribution.
And that's exactly what the machine learning approach is.
Okay. Okay, so another case is assume the missing blew the measuring device to pieces, blew the measuring device up. In other words, i.e., e.g., out of range or something.
That could be the censored data.
Yeah, which is okay. So this is the machine learning approach, basically. Machine learning, etc.
And statistics approach uses that too.
Plus traditional statistics.
Yeah.
And this is now censored data, etc. Censored, etc. Question mark.
Kind of. Not really.
Okay, so what are some other cases? I mean, what are some other things you might do with missing? So another thing you might do with missing is...
What most libraries do is to ignore it.
Okay, well,
if you're going to do something that works automatic, you drop it.
Assume the presence of missing poisons the computation and return an error.
That's one.
It's something one might want to do. I mean, that would be... Look, there are situations in which you absolutely want that to happen. In other words, you say you're trying to do some very high-value computation, and you thought you'd measured everything, but whoops, you didn't. Okay? Like let me give you an example. Let's say you're trying to... you're trying to pick the best person out of 10 for something, right? And for whatever reason, and you're running this computation, you're going to select the right person, the best person. But actually, some of the results hadn't come in for some of those people. Okay, you run the computation. It says, I'm giving you a bad example. Maybe you're trying to do grading, and you're trying to I don't know what you can clearly make up.
I think grading, right? You're trying to report statistics on how your class did, and oops, you forgot to enter the last 5 grades, and so what you have is meaningless.
Yes, which means so that's okay. That's the case where it poisons. So another case is just drop anything that's missing. Okay, now notice that the just drop anything that's missing runs into some of the same issues that we have here. Because e.g., if it's a pair, if it's, you know, in a pair, like it's, you know, 5 comma missing, do you drop the whole thing? Or what do you do there? You have to, then you have to drop. Okay, so what just drop anything that's missing means, with more particularly with, look at the elements going into the computation. If one of them has any part that's needed missing, drop the whole element. Right? That's basically what you'd have to do here. Is that correct, Roger?
That's one strategy, yeah.
Well, is there a different one for this case?
Well, as I said, as a matter of procedure, I think most libraries and other things, they will have a simpler strategy. They say they basically remove elements that are not of the right form.
Okay, well, fine.
And then you can have an extended strategy where they use some named model for how to replace them. And that named model usually comes down to roughly what you said in the first case, ambient distribution or something else that is assumed for this kind of computation.
Right. Okay, so actually I'm looking at some comments on the live stream here. Assuming the missing as an average is the same as leaving it out for a mean. Yes, that's correct, for a mean specifically, but not for anything else. I mean, a skewness or whatever else absolutely does not do that. That's a specific property of the mean. Now, okay, so there's another possibility. Okay, another possibility is add.
But the mean is a sort of a derived quantity from a distribution. So
yeah, I understand.
So you can do the same analog for other things. You know, if you model the distribution, you get all those derived kind of properties.
Okay, so this is another case. Add a roundness to right? In that case, that works, for example, for median.
Kind of.
Well, explain to me. Okay, so here's another case. So we've got, as we represent missing data, we've got a couple of things. We don't yet have a geo around, and probably, and Jose is probably freaking out even thinking about that. But geo around it happened in Poland, but I don't know exactly where. That's very weird. You know, it happened in this geocircle or something. Is that meaningful? Is that I mean, okay, question, multivariate around. How do we think about multivariate around?
Well, that's why there is a vector around which has covariances, because
I see.
Yeah.
So is that essentially an ellipse? Is the vector around defining an ellipsoid?
Yes. So in plotting functions, it's represented in the 2D case as ellipses.
Right. Okay. So this is okay. I understand. So that's what we're dealing with there. So the idea that it happens within a region is kind of silly, and we're not doing that. This is the case where there is uncertainty. So the question is, when things are missing, you know, are there? Okay. Question for statistics folk: am I right that quotes robust statistics is supposed to be a case where when stuff is missing, it doesn't make much of a difference? Is that sort of the idea?
No, it's more of outliers. So you can have values that.
No, fair point. Yeah, you're right. That's right. Yes. Okay.
It's being insensitive to outliers.
Yeah. Right. I remember that. Okay. So are you saying that this case here of using a roundness to represent uncertainty is basically never going to work?
Median comes down to the same thing as mean. You know, in that if you want to model, you can always sort of give this unbounded uncertainty, if you like. And And censoring is doing that. They're typically half infinite intervals. The person is going to die, but is not dead yet.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But is median around implementable if there's missing data? Right? It is, isn't it? I mean, in other words, if I look naively, if I simply take, this, whatever it is, and then I say infinity, right? And I do median of that. If I do this, okay, hold on. Oh, for God's sake. Why does median refuse to do that? Why does median refuse in the case of infinity? That's well defined, isn't it?
You think it would be.
It's just a bug.
Yeah. I think median was more or less defined in version 5 or 6.
Okay, so I claim, without
and I think it used to work only on numeric data, I think. There's a lot of these descriptive statistics that only work on numeric data.
Okay, well, fine. So this is a bug, so it should be fixed. Is there a problem with that? I mean, is there a problem, Roger? I mean,
no,
this looks like a bug.
No, they can be improved. I don't know if,
What is median if you have infinity minus infinity?
It's just going to give an error. It's not going to do a damn thing.
Logically, what's the definition in that case?
It's undefined. You can't give a value in that case. But in this case, you can give a value, can't you? You're just sorting the things, and you're saying, now, yeah, you're sorting them, and you have a few that are in this half line, off tooling off to infinity.
Yeah, it's probably just a subtle bug in the implementation because infinity and minus infinity aren't numeric.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the answer to Gauss's question is exactly the same. I mean, I would expect it to return mean of minus infinity, comma infinity, which is indeterminate with a message.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue it should return whatever median of empty list returns, which is probably unevaluated.
Wait. Why would median of minus infinity, comma infinity be the same as median of empty list?
Because,
and by the way, median of minus infinity, comma infinity, infinity, infinity is different, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be infinity.
Yeah. Okay. But so what we're saying here is that median could return, is it an interval or is it two values or what is it? No, if you have n missings in median, they're just two values, right? I mean, however many missings you have. No, am I right?
No,
am I wrong?
No. The more missings you have, the wider the range because you don't know where they sort. But it's still it's.
I mean, do you have to do a permutations calculation, or is there a shortcut?
Oh, I see. Well, I'm sure there's a shortcut.
Median is basically looking at the quantile function of the underlying distribution.
Right, so, but I mean, okay, but so median is a case where we could return something reasonable. We could return an error-bounded thing for...
That's usually not so good when you vary the output.
What do you mean?
For the consuming function.
No, I understand. I agree, but we have things like we have the idea we could have a median around that would do this, even if it isn't median itself that does it. Even if median itself just punts, says I don't know what to do.
But around in all of this may be also a bit forced because it always has some sort of Gaussian interpretation behind it, while these things
fair enough
do not need to be.
Okay, but so let's take a look for a moment, and we're going to run out of time here. But okay. So this first case, assume the missing was not measured and follows the ambient distribution. Okay. By the way, I don't think that is always what you want. And that's a difference between X and missing. If you have a machine learning thing where you say that whenever you see a picture that looks like this, it's X, as opposed to whenever you see a picture like this, it counts as missing, so to speak. Well, the label is missing. Those are different things. That's kind of obvious. That's obvious. Never mind that. I mean, missing is a special kind of label for machine learning. I mean, if that's what, look, if the label is missing, okay, you have some training data and every picture of a lion, the label is missing. I don't know how you want to interpret that. That is, ignore that piece of data because the label is missing, or return missing if you see a lion. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right. I kind of feel that there's more utilities that can be around, so we can make all this descriptive statistics functions do something, documented behavior, possibly options to control. But I kind of feel that there are other utilities that should be general data cleaning, data handling kind of utilities.
Yeah, but the fact is there are things where inside the computation something has to happen. Like it has to do this you don't really want. Okay, so look. One thing you can do is just do synthesize missing data. Is that what we called it? Synthesize missing values.
Mm-hmm.
And what that's going to do is it's going to take every missing and explicitly replace it by 7.2, 8.4, whatever. But that's a different result from saying, it's like a stochastic variable where you're summing over all possible values of the stochastic variable distributed in some particular way. Am I making sense? It's a different result. I mean, taking it and doing something explicit and taking your data and returning another piece of data is different from having data where you're assuming that those values are stochastic according to some distribution, right? Roger?
No, I'm not sure it is.
It is, because one of them you've got 7 values there, and they're sitting there as 7 explicit, randomly chosen values. And there's a mean of those specific 7.
Right. But often you don't use the one way is to do a random instance, like synthesize missing values does.
Yes.
The other thing that you replace them with like in the case of mean, with their mean. With that property of the distribution. But there's sort of implicitly the distribution figures in there anyway.
Well, there's a third thing you could do. You could replace it with a symbolic distribution.
But that's not a practical thing to do, right? That's not.
Why? I mean, if it's a Gaussian distribution, it might well be a practical thing to do. It's very similar to what a round does.
No, a round has all kinds of approximations along the way.
You could replace it with an around object, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's. Okay, we got to wrap this meeting. But I did want to talk about the generalization of delete missing, which is things like unless missing map onto 3, 4, 5 missing, whatever it is, which means, so that would return f of 4, f of 5 missing f of 5. In other words, it leaves the missings there, but it doesn't mess with them and tangle everything up.
Is it specific to missing? Or what about all the other missing things?
I don't know. I was thinking it was specific to missing, but I don't know. Because most of the other things, protect.
I agree with you. Something along these lines that makes sort of functional programming a little bit more robust would be,
Right. Right, because the main point is that missing, you want to do this unless the data is funky in some way. Now, I don't know whether missing... Okay, so there's another case here, which is when you do part extraction and so on, missing type stuff.
And there's also failure.
Yes.
And dollar failed.
We would also need that unless missing for listable functions, because then it becomes really powerful to apply f only to a subset of the values, but in a listable form.
What do you mean by that?
That means now that we are mapping over a list, it might be inefficient. We want to apply f to the non-missing values as a list.
You mean that case?
Yes, we want to apply f to the list 675 and then put it back.
I don't see how that can be done in any reasonable fashion.
Yeah, it would be related to subset map, but at the positions of the missings or the complement of the positions.
Yeah, subset map is a, I see. All right, well, question mark, relation to subset map. This is a whole different discussion. What happens? Yeah, someone on the live stream is asking if we say around random real, let's say 1, random real 0.1, we make a table of 10 random missings, 10 random arounds, and then we say median of that. I think it'll just work, won't it? Oh, why doesn't that work?
Because around is new and we haven't propagated it there yet.
No, it may actually be mathematically hard. It's not obvious to me what that would be mathematically.
Yeah, I think that the problem is for median, you need to be able to sort, and that's a pull set.
But there's a deeper model than sorting for median, And so,
no, I don't. I'm sure you know better. But
explain. Is there a meaningful value for this?
Yeah.
Because you take an ensemble of points, and for each, certainly there is a way, Monte Carlo-wise, to generate the answer here.
Yeah, but obviously you can tell that nobody has thought about it yet.
Yeah, I can tell that. So we're raising it. So, but the question, so is this for the statistics team, or is this where, and how many of these things, do we have any idea? So mean was specifically supports around, is that correct?
Not really. This worked because mean is going to add the rounds and divide by the number. And because plus can add the rounds, then it can do it.
I see. So if I say that, I'll get that. But if I say sort a %51, I'm going to be out of...
Well, you'll get something because it does canonical order. Now, if you do numerical sort, then some of those will evaluate and some of them won't, right?
Oh, for God's sake. Why did numerical sort work? Maybe it should object.
Right. Well, it can because it can...
It went inside and sorted the first arguments.
Yes, I can see. But is that the right thing for it to do, or should it complain that those are of an unknown sorting order?
Well, they are sortable, right? As long as they don't overlap.
Yes, I understand, but assume they overlap.
I guess the question is, what if you take two of them and stick less in between? So take the 0.855 and the 0.88 and stick a less between them, and what does that do?
It does nothing yet.
What do you want it to do?
Well, the idea here would be to have a more powerful function that will say something like, well, is this are they compatible with some overlapping probability or something like that? So comparing them, unless we just compare the first numbers.
No, that's hopeless. We shouldn't do that. That would be a mistake.
Right.
And
you can compare intervals, for example, right? If
these are not intervals. These are think of these.
No, but the intervals stay unevaluated too.
Exactly. If they overlap, they don't do anything at all.
Right. Well, non-overlapping intervals. Do they have a sort ordering?
Yes.
Yes. If they don't overlap, that's clear.
Yes. If you do interval of 0, 1 less than interval of 2, 3.
But our significance arithmetic does not. Our significance arithmetic gives order.
Yeah, I know, but that's because it has to.
Right. So for things that are kind of
right, but I mean, what sigma would you like it to go to if these are Gaussians to decide that it couldn't possibly be less than that?
Well, either 3 or 6, depending on whether I'm, doing social science or particle physics.
Oh, God. I mean, are we serious that we could do something like that? I don't think that's serious.
Well, probably not automatically, no.
But, I mean, what one would imagine is something like, I mean, this is a stupid name, but evaluate at 3 sigma or something. And then you take that.
Or you can use the option significance level.
Oh, in what? Well, less doesn't really have a very easy way to take options. But your what would that significance level?
So with the probability of something, this gonna be true.
Well, so less takes there's a parameter called equal tolerance that specifies the number of bits that you are considering.
I see. Well, that's interesting then. Then significance level is not silly there.
Right. It has some bits of tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's dollar and
dollar.
Okay. Yeah, and probably it's a system internal function. Symbol. Dollar equal tolerance. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, but that's not. Is that an explicit? Is that an explicit option to less, or is it something different? Well, anyway,
no,
look, I think
it's a dollar variable, so I think it's like internal equal tolerance. Dollar. Yeah.
It's internal backtick dollar equal tolerance.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just pasted it if you want to.
I think this is actually an interesting idea. This idea that we could have some evaluate function that says evaluate this. You've got a collection of things that cannot be resolved, right? There, you could imagine resolving it to a certain significance level, I guess.
I'm a little bit concerned about this because think on Parando's game. You might evaluate every single one correctly, but the result is totally wrong.
What game? What?
Parando.
What's that?
2 losing games make a winning game.
Oh, okay.
So kind of like locally, you even if you locally do it always right,
I see.
It's not commutative, additive, and such things.
Okay, all right. That's a fair point. Well, it's basically worry about transitivity of various kinds, I think.
Yes.
To do a sample from distribution A, and I'm looking at the live stream comment here, is likely to be less from a sample distribution B. No, this is what we're asking here is what's the probability if you convolve the 2 distributions, what's the overlap probability and so on. All right, so this maybe is won't work. All right, we should wrap this meeting. This is I think we've got a few sort of obvious things here of little bugettes and this stuff about the treatment of missing in visualization, which seems like those are actionable things immediately. And then we need to loop back again to talk more about how to handle missing for these computational purposes and functional programming with and less missing and so on. Sounds right? Sounds reasonable to people?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you to folks on the live stream. Talk to you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.